the floor over you.
Walking the floor.
I'm walking the floor. Walking the floor over you.
Hola, senors and senoritas. Yes, 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 it is Walking the Floor time once again with me, Chris Shiflett. Woo, what a week we had last week. 3 episodes of Walking the Floor in 1 week. I've never done it. I'm freaking exhausted. That was really a lot of episodes to put up in 1 week. And not just 3 different episodes, but 3 completely different walks of life. We had music, boxing, and politics. Bam! That was good, but I don't really see myself repeating that crazy feat of podcasting anytime again real soon. But that's because I'm going to be too busy playing shows. Got shows, man. This is the last podcast before my show at Mollusk in Silver Lake. Not the one in Venice, not the one in San Francisco, but Silver Lake. Mollusk. Get over there. Saturday, November 12th. I'm playing early. Show starts at 7:30. I'm on first, so make sure you get there early. And there's a couple other bands playing, and it's going to be a really fun night. And I tell you what, I don't just play at Mollusk. I wear their clothes. And not because they give them to me for free and tell me to do that, but because I like their clothes. So come to Mollusk. And then the week after, I'm playing down at the Rob Machado Foundation benefit at the Belly Up on November 15th. And I've got a show at Revo Surf Shop in Ventura. Actually, I've got 2 shows. There's one at Revo Surf Shop in Ventura on December 1st, one at Revo Surf Shop in Camarillo on December 2nd. And those are all acoustic shows. And then I'm playing with X, opening up for X, full band, December 18th at the Casbah in San Diego, and New Year's Eve at the Roxy in Hollywood. It's going to be great, great, great times. Oh, man. Tomorrow, it's the end of our big, wacky election cycle year. I hope you got to listen to my interview with Thomas Frank the other day. So much fun talking to him. I love it. I was really surprised I didn't get that much hate mail. Usually anything political, I get a lot of hate mail. I think I got like 1 negative comment. That's pretty cool. So check that out and go vote, man. And when you vote tomorrow, vote for me, Chris Shiflett, because I will do a better job than either of those knuckleheads on the ballot. I'm way more equipped to be president of America, right? So vote Chris Shiflett. Election 2016. Come on. All right. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe I'm not equipped to be president of the United States. But you know who is equipped to be president of the United States? Zounds.com. They could be president of the United States because they sell all kinds of music gear that's so great and they do such a great job. And when you get over to Zounds.com and you order that stuff, they get it to you quick. Although, this week, you might have to give them a break because, you know, they're based in Chicago and the Cubs just won the World Series. And my guess is the entire staff of Zounds.com is out in the streets of Chicago with their shirts off and they're wasted and they're probably lighting cop cars on fire and rioting and celebrating. So give them a break. Maybe they're moving a little slow this week. They all have intense, crippling hangovers this week, I'm sure. Zounds.com. All right, let's get to the interview. All right, so I was lucky enough to catch up with singer-songwriter John Moreland a few months back while he was coming through L.A. on tour. He stopped by Walking the Floor World Headquarters and sat down with me, and we talked about, everything from dreams of NBA superstardom as a kid in Kentucky and Tulsa, Oklahoma, to later on discovering punk rock and playing in punk rock bands and how that evolved into playing acoustic and getting into fingerstyle guitar and songwriting and how independent artists get a foothold in this crazy industry that we're all in nowadays. And if you stay tuned all the way to the end of the interview, he plays a great new song that, I don't know, is this a Walking the Floor exclusive? I don't know. I don't think it's out anywhere else, but it's called There's No Glory in Regret, and it was absolutely beautiful. So make sure you listen all the way through. This is John Moreland on Walking the Floor.
What you've already been through, but darling, I can't help the way I feel.
I was in Oklahoma City over the summer for a few days. And just like everywhere else nowadays, like hipsterism it's scaly tentacles have reached there. But like that's not my memory of I've been through Oklahoma a million times on the road, and that's not my memory of so much of touring the States. You'd always you're in a town, you're sort of struggling to find a good place to grab a cup of coffee or whatever. But it looks like that's all changing. But I'm wondering, what was it like for you growing up there? What was the city like?
Growing up in Oklahoma was like, there wasn't. I grew up in Tulsa, and
I thought you were Oklahoma City.
Tulsa, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's. It's like they're close. They're like 90 miles apart.
Right.
And the music scenes are kind of a little bit different, but they sort of blur into each other. And but back then, when I was a kid, there was not a lot going on, not a lot of places to play, but that sort of gave way to this little punk scene that like what happens everywhere when there's nothing to do and nowhere to play. You just start bands and play in somebody's yard or their basement or
keg parties and that sort of thing. Yeah, sure. Was there a big music scene, punk rock music scene when you were a kid?
Yeah, there was a lot of, like, strangely, there was a lot of like Christian bands doing that because it's Oklahoma and it's the Bible Belt, and there were a lot of there were no clubs to play in, but there were like churches that would just kind of let kids do whatever they wanted, and so yeah, there was a lot. Growing up there, religion really like infiltrates everything.
That's funny, what I remember. I grew up in Santa Barbara, an hour and a half north of here, but how it's same kind of deal when you're in high school and you're first starting to play. It's that thing of like, well, okay, I've got these guys that we're gonna play with, but like my parents aren't gonna let us make noise at our house. Where are we gonna do it? Yeah. And I remember the drummer, the church that he went to would let us rehearse there.
Yeah.
And we could do like whatever we wanted. It was great.
Yeah.
And they would just sort of gently proselytize to you.
Yeah, we would. That was.
Everyone's so friendly here.
Right. There was there were a lot of churches that would let you have band practice or let you have shows, and there would be bands that would be kind of blatantly like Christian bands, but then they would start inviting their friends' bands to play, and it would get a little blurry. Like, who I think there were definitely times when like the leaders at those churches would kind of be like, oh, what did we get into here?
Who'd we let in here?
Yeah.
That's funny, man. Like, what kind of bands were you listening to at that time? Like, what years would this have been? Which sort of subsection of punk rock are we talking about?
Well, like, I was born in 1985, so when I was 13, I got into punk rock. So it was 98, and the first bands that I got into, there was a kid at my school who would come to school in like a NoFX shirt or like a Mighty Mighty Boss Tone shirt, and so I would kind of just check out whatever bands were on his T-shirts, and then at the same time, like, I grew up in a religious family, and so I was having like in church youth group being kind of having like the Christian alternatives to like whatever bands were on the radio thrown at me, and then the same thing kind of happened with punk rock, and so MXPX was the big one that was like okay to listen to if you were a church kid that your parents wouldn't freak out about. And then I started looking at pictures of MXPX and checking out whatever bands were on my Carreras T-shirts, and so I got into Social Distortion and Rancid and just like whatever, and it was kind of in that age of where we had the internet and it was super slow, but it was good enough that you couldn't just get whatever music you wanted for free, but you could check stuff out.
Right,
and
right.
Figure out if it was
if you were willing to wait for that dial-up.
Yeah, you could wait. You could you could spend 3 hours downloading the 30-second WAV file or whatever, and hear what Minor Threat sounded like. And,
right. It seems like punk rock has been this gateway music form for people to old honky tonk and Americana and kind of just
Yeah.
roots music in general.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what were the artists that that first piqued your interest and got you sort of listening to some of that more rootsier sounding stuff than the punk rock stuff you'd been
Well,
into?
my dad always listened to roots rock and just like classic rock and stuff. So
was that
those
even
were-
was that like even before punk rock? Were you sort of familiar
Yeah.
with those bands?
Well, I mean, I was familiar with just stuff that he listened to, like CCR or Neil Young or whatever. Like, so those sounds were familiar to me, I guess. That aesthetic, and that kind of rootsy aesthetic. And when I was going through like the punk rock thing and then branching off and finding like hardcore and finding like indie rock bands and just stuff that was, related to punk, I would occasionally find like, there was this band I really liked from Florida called 238 that had like kind of, they would have like slide guitar parts and I remember thinking like, oh, I like those sounds, and I would find like Magnolia Electric Company, Jason Molina. So like stuff that was, indie rock stuff that was like big enough that like a hardcore kid would hear about it, that was kind of rootsy. Like that was sort of my gateway back into that kind of stuff, because it was something that that I thought was cool, but it sounded like music my dad listened to. It had that familiarity to it. So I think that was kind of the bridge for me.
And how old were you when you first started playing guitar, playing in bands?
I started playing guitar when I was 10, and my first like real band with, guitarist, bass player, and a drummer, and we played shows and stuff. That I was 13.
And you guys played out around town and stuff?
We played in this girl's backyard, and we played at like, we played at the drummer's church, and we played, probably only 3 or 4 shows before we broke up, but. Yeah, just like I definitely remember playing that was my first show ever, was in this girl's backyard in Sapulpa, Oklahoma.
I mean, it's funny, at the time, I was in a band called No Use for a Name that was like part of that world, and I'm wondering now, sitting here talking to you, if did we ever play shows together? Were we ever in the same room together?
No, we never played shows together. I was definitely aware of No Use for a Name though, and my tour manager Bobby Dean was a big No Use for a Name fan, and we jammed some No Use for a Name on the way here the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice, cool.
Town, yeah.
Well, for somebody with like a punk rock past or punk rock upbringing, I'm curious how you got so fucking good on fingerstyle guitar. That is like a style of guitar playing that has always eluded me, and I love it. But it's real particular and it's real hard.
Yeah. I really just started playing that way about maybe like 5 years ago. And it was something I was, my first, the first time I remember hearing and noticing. I mean, I had heard like, I'd heard like blues pickers or country pickers play that kind of stuff, and when I was younger, I'm sure, and I didn't really care. And the first time I remember being interested in it was I would hear Steve Earle songs where he picked like that, and so and later I realized he was kind of emulating Townes Van Zant's fingerstyle, and I kind of would trace that back, and I found like Mississippi John Hurt, and so yeah, I was kind of interested in it, and I wasn't very good at it, and I just decided I want to be able to do that. And so every time I picked up the guitar for like a year, I made myself no picks. I just made myself practice that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I got decent at it. I only use my thumb and my index finger. I don't use any other fingers.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
So were you picking that up by ear, or were you taking lessons? How were you doing
No,
that?
I've never taken any lessons, but I picked it up by ear, and I might have watched like a YouTube video or two trying to get it down, but
That's like my favorite thing to do on tour. I just sit there, I mean, as a touring musician, you know, you wind up having so much time just kind of sitting around, and I will just go down the rabbit hole of like, you know, how'd that guy play that? And then there's a million people on YouTube explaining how you do it, and you just keep, you know, just connecting videos.
Yeah, totally.
So how did you transition from being in a punk rock band to being like a one-man band? Because I think people should understand. I don't know if people that are non-musicians or whatever understand. That is so scary to be just alone with a guitar. It's like being a comedian, or it's like one step away from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so I was in punk bands and hardcore bands, and then I started writing songs that were, you know, to my ear, I thought they were country songs, but they were just songs that weren't hardcore songs.
Right.
But and I wanted to start a band to play that stuff, and I got some friends and we started a band and played. We played for about 3 or 4 years, and then we had some lineup changes, and it just got to a point where I wasn't feeling it anymore, and I didn't want to continue in that band, so I quit. And I wasn't really looking to be a solo performer. I wanted to start another band, but I kept getting asked to play shows, and you know, and so I would kind of go, well, I guess I could play that one solo since I don't have any other dudes to play with yet. And it was really terrifying, and I hated the idea at first. It was kind of just, I did it out of necessity so that I could still be playing. And but after a few months, I discovered I really liked it, because, you know, when you're playing with a band, it's just, I work hard on the songs. I work hard on the lyrics, and it was nice to play a song and have people go, man, that was a really great line, and actually quote lyrics back to me, because that never happened when I played with the band.
Because they could actually hear the lyrics.
Because they actually hear the lyrics.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really cool. It's, you know, when you play with a band, people might say like, cool guitar solo, or your drummer's rad, or whatever. But like,
your drummer's rad. That's like the ultimate compliment, non-compliment. Man, your drummer's tight. Your drummer's rad.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it was nice to get compliments like, that was a really good line, or you're a good songwriter. I discovered that was kind of more satisfying.
And when did you start making records? Like, had you made records in some of your earlier punk rock stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in recording studios since I was about 16, just doing, back then it was like punk bands, like, you know, we got $250 to make an EP, and we're gonna record it and mix it in one night.
Right.
So we can sell it at our show tomorrow. But, yeah, and so I had been doing that, and the band that I mentioned that I had before I started playing solo, we made 2 records, and that was called the Black Gold Band. And so yeah, I'd been kind of making records all along, and then I got, you know, when I started doing the solo thing and taking songwriting a lot more seriously, I kind of got more serious about making records too.
Like, at what point did it turn from being, you know, an amateur musician to a like professional musician? Like, you know, became your life, your job, however you want to.
I mean, I always wanted it to be my job, and so it was my life even before it was my job, because my life was trying to figure out a way to turn it into my job. Yeah. And
you started getting traction right away from that first record, didn't you?
No, I mean, well, I had a record that a lot of people don't know about called Earthbound Blues. That was my first solo record, and I did get one of those songs was used on the TV show Sons of Anarchy, so that was something. But I was still, you know, touring around and playing to, you know, 3 people every night. But and then the next record, In the Throes, was kind of where things started to pick up a little bit.
I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit. You know, I should have looked before we started doing this interview, but I didn't even look to see what label you're on or any of that stuff. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, you know, how a young artist gets their music out there to the world nowadays, because it's changed so much. You know, it's from like, you know, 20 years ago when I was in No Use for a Name or whatever. It's like, it's just a very different world. You mentioned you had some songs on TV shows and things like that, but how do you do it?
Well, So that Earthbound Blues record, I recorded that in my friend Matt's house, and we, when the record was done, you know, it was always my plan. I knew when we were making it that I was really proud of it, and it was my favorite thing I had done yet. And so I had this plan that I wanted to, like, you know, shop it around to labels or do whatever you're supposed to do. And I quickly realized I don't have any fucking idea how to do that shit. And so I kind of just, I was like, well, I don't know what else to do. So I just put it on Bandcamp. I put it on the internet, and I got 100 copies pressed to sell at shows because that was all I could afford. And and I would just play shows, and when I sold out of the 100 copies, I'd get 100 more. And yeah, I just did that, and I was lucky to have a friend, like, kind of my buddy Chris DeMakes from the band Less Than Jake was he was friends with a lady who has like this sync licensing company and out here in LA, and so he like kind of hooked me up with her, and she started shopping the songs around to TV shows. So that was just kind of a stroke of luck. But as far as like putting the music out, there wasn't a label interested or anything. There wasn't any money behind it. I put it on the internet. The next record, In the Throes, was like a little bit more legit process, but it was still a really small label. Great dude in Little Rock named Travis Hill has this label called Last Chance, and he saw me play a show in Little Rock and said, "Hey, let me put out your next record." So we did that, but there was still, you know, there was like no publicist, no radio. I didn't have a book, and I started touring full time. I didn't have a booking agent. It was just me.
What would you do? Like literally just call the bookers at clubs?
Yeah, I would call people. I would send emails. If I would get on, I would get on a club's website and just look at the booking instructions, and just send emails till I heard something back, which was never a lot of times. And,
sure.
But then, you know, it's hard. It was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna book. Like my first tour on the West Coast, I was like, I'm gonna just shoot for these. Like I played 7 shows. I was like, I'm gonna shoot for these 7 places, and I chose those places because they were places where I was pretty sure I could get a show, and you know, I did the whole thing, and there were like 5 people at every show, but it was enough to be like, this is awesome, and I should keep doing
progress. It's working.
Yeah, totally.
Well, it's a funny thing when you're booking tours like at that level where you know you're booking a club halfway across the country or all the way across the country, and you have no idea, is that the right place to play in that town? I mean,
it's
can't
total
tell you.
trial and error. I mean, you just show up, and it might be the absolute wrong place for you to play in that town.
Yeah.
But you go do it, and maybe there's somebody there who says, next time you come to town, you should play at this place. And so next time time you come to town, you try to play at that place instead. Right. And there's like still nobody there, but maybe the owner of the club likes you, and you get to come back again, and maybe there's like 15 people the next time. And you just keep doing that.
I mean, how many it's funny just thinking about that. Like if I had a nickel for every time on a No Use for a Name tour, we played some club, you know, that was like half empty, and like half the kids there would go, "Oh man, no one plays this club. You should have played, exactly. You know, the VFW hall over in one county over." You know?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, that's just standard.
Yeah.
Speaking of touring, though, how much time do you spend on the road? I mean, are you just touring constantly?
It feels like it, but I'm not real. I mean, I know bands who play a lot more shows than I do. I played like 150 shows last year.
That's a lot of shows.
It's kind of a lot, but I know. I mean, I know like I'm really good friends with those Lucero dudes, and I remember actually when I was starting to like write some of these songs, like there was a little documentary about them called Dreaming in America that I thought was just like the coolest thing, and it made me want to, you know, quit my job and go on tour forever.
Yeah, I think I watched that online. It's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it kind of captured them at a time when they were really struggling, and but they were playing like 280 shows a year.
Jesus,
it's just
man.
So I know, 150.
That makes me feel soft and spoiled.
Yeah, me too, man. Yeah. So 150 is like it's kind of a lot, but kind of not.
And when you tour, do you take you're playing it's just you up there with your guitar, but do you take a crew with you? Do you take friends? Like how do you do it?
For years it was just me alone, and
it's a great feeling. It's kind of like I don't know.
Weird. It gets a little.
It's
weird.
nice to have like one person with you.
Yeah.
I've done a little bit of that, not as much as I would like to, but there's something about just getting in your car to go on tour with like one other person.
It
nice. Feels like you're like running away or like you're going on vacation or something.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I love it.
It's really like, it's just this unorganized, just driving around playing shows.
You feel very free. There's that thing that happens on tours when there's a lot of people on a tour where it's like the 30-headed monster where you're like, I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee. And then someone, I'll go with you. Oh, and all of a sudden, 45 minutes later, you're still standing around going, God, can I just go get a coffee? And you just don't have that on like a tour when it's just one or two people. Yeah, exactly. It's a very liberating feeling.
Yeah. Now I've got a tour manager and my girlfriend is on this tour with us too. So there's 3 of us on this one.
And do you ever go out with a full band? I know you've recorded with more of a full band kind of arrangement.
Yeah, I haven't toured with a full band, but I've played like local shows in Oklahoma with a full band, and hopefully I'll be able to tour with them at some point. But we're, those guys all play in other bands, and so we're just kind of, when we're all home at the same time, we'll try to play a show or two.
Yeah.
And maybe one day when I can afford them, we'll be able to do a whole tour.
You mentioned Little Rock, playing a gig in Little Rock a minute ago, and I had read this thing online about Miranda Lambert, like driving all the way from Nashville to Little Rock to go see you play a gig. I'm wondering, A, is that true? And B, what does like sort of a, big time celebrity endorsement like that do for you? What does that mean to you?
Well, yeah, she came to the show in Little Rock. I don't know if
is that like a common occurrence? Or there, is Brad Pitt like at your show at the Troubadour? Hey, buddy.
No, I guess she just. It's funny because I played in Nashville like a couple days before that, but she decided to come to Little Rock, and I mean, what does it mean to me? It mean, she was really nice, and I made a new friend. Is all it means to me.
Right. Do you ever write for like mainstream artists, mainstream country artists?
No.
Have you had any experience like in Nashville, sort of like doing that whole thing?
I've always turned that stuff down. I don't.
Oh, really?
I'm not really interested in that at all, and it's not because of some ideological like I think it's evil or any kind of bullshit like that. I've found that if it's something that I don't feel like I'm gonna sing and myself and put it on a John Moreland record, then I don't really have any interest in working on it. Like that might sound shitty, but I just don't.
No, I don't think so. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't like. I like writing songs for me that I'm gonna play myself. And
sure.
I want to write songs and make records and go play shows, and I'm not that interested in like side stuff.
Right. I mean, you started writing songs when you were really young, right?
Yeah, when I was 10, pretty much as soon as I started playing the guitar.
I wonder if could you talk a little bit about your own personal sort of songwriting process or the discipline of it, or how you go about doing what you do? It's
gone through different phases, and the discipline thing is something I always kind of struggle with, because
we are all lazy musicians, right?
Yeah, totally. And I used to write all the time, but it wasn't because I was really disciplined and made myself write all the time. It was just because before I started touring, I didn't have anything else to do, and I would naturally just do it all the time.
Yeah.
And now I have to really like make myself find the time to do it, Because when
Do you keep like a notebook, or are you like a
I just
scribbler?
on my phone. I have like
Yeah.
when I think of a line or two, I save it on my phone.
The problem I always find with that is then you have to go back and read that shit.
Yeah.
And actually like turn it into something.
Yeah.
I keep a lot of notes, but it's like I don't know that I have
like
a lot of
doing that,
success
though.
going back and doing it.
I like going back because it's nice to like a lot of times when a line hits me, it sort of comes with a melody. So that can really, and when it happens, I might not have time to write the song, but later on I'll go back and when I read it, I'll remember what the melody was, and then it kind of like sparks a whole song.
Right. Have you seen that Apple made that new app? I think it's called like Music Memo.
No.
Because I guess they finally got hip to how everybody just uses voice memo.
Yeah.
You got to check this. It's mind blowing.
Okay.
How cool it is. It figures out when you just play like a little something on guitar. It tells you what chords you played.
Oh, nice.
It adds bass and drums, and you can move the beat around. It's mental.
That's crazy.
It's pretty, like, as a songwriting tool, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah, that's rad.
Well, I guess since you did start writing songs pretty young, like, where'd you get the confidence? It takes a certain amount of confidence to do that. I'm wondering where that came from for you.
I think it came from just not being like dumb enough to not realize how bad I was. I was just, and I can remember a time when I think that was true when I first started writing songs, and also all through my teens I would write songs for the bands I was in, but that's kind of a different thing. That's sort of just the thing that drives that is it's just like I got a band and we need songs, so I'll make some songs up. And then when I found like Steve Earle and Guy Clark, and I realized songwriting could be something else entirely, and I started to kind of try to shift my mentality towards that. I was really, if I would have had any more sense, I wouldn't have done it, because I would have been too scared to. Like, yeah. I'm really glad I was audacious enough to like hear Steve Earle and go, I could do that, even though that's fucking ridiculous.
Right? Yeah.
Especially for a 19-year-old.
Sure.
But like,
sure.
And I was dead wrong, but I was dumb enough to think that, and that's.
Well, he did the same thing, but it was him looking at Townes Van Zandt.
Yeah,
exactly. I can do that too.
Yeah.
That's funny, man. I mean, your songs are like lyrically, you pack a lot of heartache, a lot of emotion into them. They're kind of lyrically heavy, even melodically kind of heavy. And I'm wondering if that, with your lyrics, are you writing about yourself? Like, are those actually your own experiences, or do you sort of write stories that are fictional that just sort of draw on emotion?
Both, yeah, all of that.
Right.
I mean, and the lines get blurred between when I'm doing which one. Too.
Right.
Like,
right.
And I try not to think about it. Like, I don't, because it doesn't matter really.
Sure.
I just want to like. I remember hearing. I don't know if this is I don't even remember where I heard this or know if it's like a true quote, but I remember hearing a supposed Townes Van Zandt quote where he said like, I want to write songs so good even I don't know what they're about. And I feel like that's right. That's awesome. That's what I want to do too.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't think about stuff like that. I just kind of like, I try to just like zone out and let stuff hit me, and then the work happens and you have to mold that stuff into something, and
right.
That's hard work. But like, but I don't analyze lyrics really when I write them. I just, if it feels good, I keep it, and if it doesn't, I throw it away.
Yeah. That's a funny thing. Songwriting is such a weird thing. Sometimes you've got an idea or a theme in your head and you're trying to kind of put it to paper, and all of a sudden you get lost and you look at it and what the fuck am I don't even know what this is about.
This now?
Right?
Yeah.
What does this even mean? Fuck this.
Yeah.
It's funny how sometimes you can just let something sit for a couple of months and you come back to it and you see it different too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Was there ever anything else that you wanted to be besides a musician?
Yeah. I wanted to be an NBA player.
Really?
Yeah. Because I grew up in Kentucky, and we didn't have an NBA team. I grew up in Kentucky before we moved to Oklahoma, to be clear. But college basketball is a big deal in Kentucky.
Right.
And so yeah, you start playing basketball when you're like 5 there.
Right.
And I always wanted to be a basketball player. And then when I was I played basketball for years, and by the time I was about 12, it was when I was younger, I was like always the tallest kid, and it was pretty easy. And by the time everybody started catching up to me in height, it wasn't as fun anymore. I found out, and I actually had to try. I couldn't just dominate. And so yeah, and then I quit playing basketball when I was 12 or 13, and over like summer break that year, I got into punk rock, and by the time school started again, I didn't want to try out for the basketball team.
So it is a bad influence. You just proved it.
It absolutely ruined my NBA career.
It's so funny, man. I grew up playing soccer till about 6th grade, and 6th grade is when I started playing guitar. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember having a conversation with my mom, like, I'm not going to do that anymore, I'm going to do this or anything. Yeah. But it just happened.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? It just happens. And then I didn't play sports again for the rest of, being a kid.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, man. Thanks for coming down here today, taking time out. Can you play us a song?
Yeah, I'll play a song.
And by us, I mean me and my computer. All right.
Yeah, this is a new song called There's No Glory in Regret. Did you hear the devil laughing from the ambulance passing? Or was that just my troubled mind? And don't you want to shake the ground and tear heaven down and raise your fist to the guilty sky? Well, I've been pouring whiskey in the wind, burning pictures of my best friends, until the ashes cover me like rain. And you meant something to me then, and you mean something to me now. But some things ain't meant to stay the same. So bless our busted hearts, just sinking into the dark, mourning these wasted old sparks that all disappeared. I never meant to be your woe is me emergency, but I ain't dead yet, and I know there ain't no glory in regret. Don't it feel like the truth comes at the price of your youth, when the hell you've paid ain't quite enough, and God's been making deals while we're down here spinning our wheels and using up our little share of love. Well, you beg the world to know your name, and you get glitter spilling out your veins. Well, turn, 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 babe, I guess it's true. 'Cause I was standing on a dead-end drive with my pride thumbing for a ride, and somehow I ended up next to you. So bless our busted hearts, just sinking into the dark, mourning these wasted old sparks that all disappear. dead yet, and I know there ain't no glory in regret. Don't it feel like the truth comes at the price of your youth?
Yeah. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What a beautiful way to end this thing.
We should take it as a sign when I'm strung out on leaving.
All right, that was John Moreland on Walking the Floor. Yes, there's no glory in regret. John Moreland from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Make sure you go to johnmoreland.net to see what he's up to. He's, I know he's got shows like from now through December and probably even beyond that. And if you want to find him on the Twitter, it's at John Moreland OK. Check him out, see what he's up to. Okay, that's it for this week. Make sure you go into the iTunes store and subscribe and listen to all the old episodes. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Come on, we'll see you in a week. Adios, amigos.
And you'd say you'd forgive me, and we'd live out some easy ancient song. Now we're higher unattended in splendid love's remembrance. You lost the mind